My name is Marie Plaisir, and I'm from District 11 in the Bronx. I'm the District Parent Advisory Council Chair for District 11 pretty much since 2008. And I have sat on PAs, PTAs. I'm currently the PTA president for MS 127, where my daughter is at in the Bronx. I sit on the district leadership team. I'm also on President's Council, which is the board that's over all the PAs and the PTAs, and many others. But just to give you an idea where my experiences have come from, and also how involved I am with DOE and many other committees and organizations. Title I is the largest federally funded educational program within New York State and within the city. So upstate, they do get Title I federal fundings as well. And also, it's not just about the lunch forms, how the funds are allocated. It's based on the poverty level. I don't really like to use that word, but it's based on the poverty level. And how federal came up with that at this point was to maximize student achievement for the lowly, economically underfunded students. So at this point, the funds were put there to maximize student achievement, but mostly to increase and maximizing parental involvement and parental engagement. So in order for that to happen, federal rules and regulations requires that there must be parent engagement. What does that look like? Meaning that parents have the right to be informed and be fully engaged in their children's education. But in order for that to happen, the overall 100% of the federal fundings that a particular school gets, 1% had been allocated for the purpose of doing exactly that, to fully get the parents engaged, providing support for their kids, getting involved in the curriculum to know what it looks like. So at this point with that, the 1% had been allocated for these activities within your local schools. But in order for that to happen, rules have been put in place that there must be a committee in place where we call it the PAC, Parent Advisory Council. That committee is responsible for the 1% being spent in a certain manner. But with it being spent, not just anyhow, meaning that if you have $10,000 have been allocated, you as a parent committee, you can't take the funds, we're going to Jamaica, meaning that educational, keep that in mind, educational level activities. And at this point, there are allowable expenses under that 1%. So you can't just spend it any way that you would like to. So you have to keep in mind the federal rules and regulations, but you have allowable expenses, how it can be spent. No need to bring up any past stories on how these funds have been misused and abused in the past and could still be happening now. So with that being done, the PAC consists of the Title I chair, the alternate chair for Title I, a treasurer, and a secretary. Just like the PA. The Title I chair, under the PAC, under the committee, the Parent Advisory Council, the alternate chair for Title I, the secretary, and the treasurer. So it's very similar to the PA or the PTAs. They're the one that would be responsible on how the funds being spent, but not without consultation from the general membership. The general membership meaning that every single parent of a local school, for example, PS 105 has a committee. So you will meet monthly. And before that 1% has been allocated to be spent, you must develop a budget plan. With that budget plan, you have $10,000 allocated for the school year. Know that all schools do not receive the same amount of Title I fundings, the overall, 100%. And whatever's allocated 1%, as James had mentioned, you could go into your school's portal, put in the school's name, you'll be able to look up the budget and look at your 1% allocation under that memorandum. It is there. It's not hidden, it is public knowledge. You could go into the DOE's website, go into your school's portal, and you see all the information that is needed to be there. It's not meant to be hidden. So if you sit on the school leadership team, at this point, the principal is responsible for sharing that entire school budget with you, with the breakdown of the 1% included in there. So copies must be given to the entire team. So once you do have your committee in place, the treasurer will be responsible for developing the budget, meaning how the funds, the 1% is going to be spent for the entire school year. But once that's done, you must get approval from your general membership, which is your parents. You want to find out, even conduct a survey, how would they like to spend the funds? You have to find out what their needs are. What are the needs of your school? What do you think your parents would like to really benefit from? What do you think they need that would really maximize their parental involvement and also assisting their children? Under the 1%, there are several activities that can take place. Whether if you have workshops on the ELA, the ELL, and don't forget your special education children. You must address the parents that have children with IEPs. That's also another need of your school. You can have a nutritional workshop. You can take parent educational trips outside of the city. It comes up to what you had mentioned before, if it could be a community activity. So there must be, at this point, a proposal that is done that is supported by the Board of Ed without going outside of the federal rules and regulations on how the funds can be used. So that must really take place. So once you present the budget to the general membership, they approve of it. They might give you any other ideas how they would like for the funds to be spent. And it must be spent down to the last cent. Keep in mind that the 1% allocated for parent-level activities is sort of like, you know, the parents are really in charge of the 1%. Know that you never come into contact with the Title I funds ever. It's like it's virtual. It's there, you know how much you have, but you never in direct contact with the funds like the PA. No access. But you have budget code and activity code on the copy of the budget that the principal is going to give you once you are part of the committee. This is how the funds are being spent. It's into the Galaxy, into the FAMIS, we call it the FAMIS system. And into the FAMIS system, there are vendors that are approved by the DOE that you can actually use for services that you may need. It could be a particular workshop. It could be also buying materials and supplies that you need for your workshops. That's allowable. You can do that. You have an ELA workshop or a math workshop, you may need folders, you may need pencils, pen, anything that makes facilitating these workshops easier. You may have to pay a teacher to conduct this particular workshop that you're having. It could be after school, and it could be just before then. But if it does go after school hours, you're required to pay that teacher. Well, guess where it's coming from? Your 1%. You have to use it. And keep in mind, you know, how much you have spent so far. So the financial manager is responsible for going into the system with you, looking up the vendors, and telling you how much you have left. If you spend $500. Oh, also don't forget food. You have to allocate, set aside monies for food and refreshments. Because if you're having a particular workshop that exceeds past meal time, like we're here, our children are here with us. It's after 6 o'clock. So we're required to have, you know, refreshment and food there because that would be the time you'd be spending with your family. You could have been home making dinner. So you're here, so we must have something for you. So that goes into your budget. You must set aside a percentage. Well, we allocated $1,500 for this entire school year. That's for food and refreshments. We have $1,000 for 2 teachers. We're going to pay them. Whatever it is that the teacher actually gets paid, that's how much you'll be required to pay them out of your 1%.